Hello, welcome to my global digital school of art. The only qualifications you'll need to enroll here is a desire to paint, a sense of humour when I get one or two things wrong, and an open, fresh mind when I get them right. So, what can this old boy teach you? Well, they do say a picture paints 1,000 words. So with that thought in mind, I will use some of my past commissioned and private works speak for me in the silent visual language of art. Plus the fact, I have been told, that they are a little more attractive to look at than me. On this first of my homemade videos, I will not be taking you step by step into completing a set picture. That will come later, once I have covered the basic needs of materials and how best to use them, by walking you through a few realistic and achievable projects that will give you a sound foundation and a way of thinking on which you can apply to any subject matter. Along the way, I will be pointing out and removing some of the very negative stumbling blocks common to all new and far too many intermediate students who are still tripping over them, having ventured into this world of watercolour painting. Not only with the materials, but also their own gremlins of self-criticism, which are preventing them from moving forwards. Hopefully, this video will enhance your enjoyment in the act of painting and give you a clear, solid pathway on which to make progress towards your own creative dreams. Well, that's enough of my showboating. From this moment on, this video is really all about you and your watercolours, not about me and my past. Books, they're great for technical information, but there is nothing quite like the unscripted talk and chalk of art in action. So having said all that, let's get the lesson underway and see if I can add to your existing skills a little something that will get your imagination tingling. On this first little project we're going to do here, I am working on a cartridge paper. I've got one of my old brushes here, and look, I've got a tag on the end so that you can watch it twisting, but because it's zoomed in quite close, if you actually watch the little ferrule there, or some of the fractures along the actual handle, you'll see the angle and the twisting which is going on. Right, now I've drawn a couple of little cherries here and at the top of the stem. Now you need to keep this drawing down to an absolute minimum. I used a 2B pencil. Only you actually need to see it. In this particular case, I've gone in just a little bit stronger so that the camera can see it. Right, now I'm going to do this little exercises using one primary red. Get a little bit more red on my palette. And look, lots of water. I don't want this first exercise to come out too strong. So look at the white. Look, when I move that around, see the water moving around. I want to try and do that same sort of effect on my paper. There we go. So I'm going to let gravity drop this pigment down, because the pigment, although it's ground very well, some pigment is a little bit heavier than others, and it will float down like sediment in the actual water. Okay, let's see if I can keep this in focus. Here we go. Right, now look, I'm keeping my brush fairly upright here, and I'm actually going over my drawn areas. Pick up a little bit more water. Can you see that the pigment, look, it's running down to the bottom, because my drawing board is on a slight slope. Right, now that may appear to be just a little bit flash. In reality the cherries are slightly heart shaped, so I'm going to come out a little bit on this one now. They're not round. If you actually look at the stone inside, you'll see that the stone isn't round, so therefore the cherry isn't round. Okay, here comes the next one. Look, you will find some of this just a little bit difficult when you first start. I've got my brush up right, and look, I'm using my brush really to float that puddle about. That is the indentation area there. It may well be that when you first start, you'll be tempted to turn your paper round. That would be understandable, but unfortunately it would mean to say that the gravity won't take the pigment down to the lower part of the cherry. That's where you want it, because it's dropping into shadow, and it's a way of actually sort of planting them. Okay. Just make that a little bit more heart shape. There we go. Right, now I'm now going to take my 2B pencil, plant the stem in, and look, I'm zipping out a little piece at the top there. Now I'm going to join up with that. Okay, we now have our little one colour cherries, but they're not exactly one colour because the actual pigment is dropping down there. I'm going to try and move this up, zoom in a little bit closer, as if it will stay in focus. There we go. Look, that puddle is still moving around there. Okay, back on there. Right, now, do not underestimate what you've actually achieved here. That is quite sophisticated. And the fact we've done two cherries, one is always going to be better than the other one. Exactly the self-same thing. If I draw two lines, one line will always be better than the other one. Only you will actually know which one is better, as far as you're concerned. Alright? Somebody else may come along and they'll see something else that the other one appeals to them more. Right, now I'm going to leave that now. I'm going to have a cup of tea while that dries off, because I'm going to put a second coat on. Right? A lot of people tend to think that watercolours are just done in one hit, and they're not. Normally speaking, you can reckon on 3 hits, and the final one is just to tweak things, putting in your low lights. So don't be tempted to go and try and force dry that. Don't put the hairdryer on it, because it will blow the water, the pigment up, and if you put it on the radiator, what will actually happen, you will in actual fact dry it. But the only problem is you will dry everything. You'll dry the paper, and the moment you've got dry paper, watercolours really doesn't like it. Alright, so have a cup of tea, come back, and we'll pick up on this one. Okay, meanwhile I'll give you a little bit more information on my materials. Okay, this is my little workstation. I won't actually be working here all the time, because not having artificial lighting, I will have to move around in accordance to where the sun shines. But for this purpose I have deliberately gone down to our high street and I've purchased some very cheap brushes, a watercolour pad. Got that at a special discount, 40% off, can't be bad. I've got some computer paper, and I've got a little bit of cartridge paper. Right, now I've also got my student range of colours here. This I actually purchased locally as well, and these are half pans, by the way. Student range. Look, I've also been out and I've purchased a whole box of tube paints. They're very, very cheap, and I will need to explain all the reasons of what I'm using, why I'm using it. Look, here's my little bowl of water. I've got one here, but when I get underway I will actually have two. I've got my pencils and I've got my brushes, and look, I've also got a plate on which to mix my colours. Right, as I said, as I go, whatever I use, I will tell you what I'm actually using. The reason why I've got all this sort of computer paper and cheap brushes is because I don't know where you are at this moment in time, and chances are you haven't got the sort of artist quality stuff which I will tend to have, and that is true of most of my students when they first arrive in class, so they're adequate. Okay, look, I've got a drawing board here and it's leaning on a little box to give it a slope, and you always need to work on this slope, by the way, especially with watercolours. With pastels and oils you can work up right, but watercolours, as you will see as I go through, you will see that the advantage of having this slight slope here. Plus the fact is, if you do come up with something which you're really proud of, you don't want to go along to a gallery and turn around and say, look, this can only be displayed flat on a table. Because if you're drawing flat on a table, when you draw a circle, it looks optically, it looks like a circle to you, but the moment you put it on the wall, it becomes an oval. There's an optical illusion going on there. Okay, look, I did say I'd be upfront and honest with everything. That is my cup of tea. Right. I can't work without a cup of tea, and the problem is I tend to dip the brush in it occasionally. Right, okay, I've enjoyed my cup of tea. Maybe you would prefer coffee. Look, I was talking about those two lines. I prefer this one to this one. This one is so samey all the way up. This one's got a little bit of weight. I let it go and I came back. So, you know, I prefer that line. But you've got to draw two lines to decide which one you prefer. Okay, the actual cherry has dried, so we're about to get a second bite of this cherry. Here's my plate again. Right, now I'm going to take exactly the same colour. I'm going to add it in. Put a bit of water in. This, by the way, is an alizarin, and I'm using my student range of watercolours here. Just for this purposes, let's just call it crimson, okay? Now, I'm going to second coat it. Sometimes I would be actually tempted to add just a little tiny bit of blue into here to deepen it a little bit more, because I want it quite strong now. So I still need lots of water, but I still need it very strong. Okay, right, now I've had a chance to look at this. This second highlight, I'm not really very happy about that. So less is more. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to just take a little bit of water that down, and I'm just going to take the brilliance off of it. Can you see that? We just, that's it. It's there. It's still there, but look, it's a little bit more interesting now. Okay, let's get back to this heavier colour, and where the indentation is, I will obviously want it to drop in there, and I want it to come from this outer edge and drop down. Now I'm going to just diffuse that with just a little bit of water. Look, I'm just doing that with my brush to take a little bit of the water off so I can diffuse it, pick up a bit more water and then float it all in. Look, I've left another little highlight just there. I think you should be able to see that. Cut that highlight down just a little bit. Diffuse that out. Yeah, that's quite nice. I'm just going to diffuse this bit around here. Oh, now look, compare the two cherries. Do the same now to the other one. Get my indentation in. Drop that down to the bottom. Let that fuse into that little area which is still damp. Look, I'm turning my brush almost up the other way so I can see where the tip is. I'm not actually painting. What I'm actually doing is I'm guiding this puddle around. That's what your brush does in actual fact. On oil paints you can whack in your brush strokes. They're very interesting. Right, I'm just going to take a little bit of my water off the brush and just diffuse that indentation there, and diffuse this outer edge. In other words, I want this outer edge damp so it floats in, so there's no definite line there. Fuse that one in just a little bit more. Okay, right, now I'm going to leave this, no I'm not, just going to fuse that one there, because there's no hard edges on the cherry. That's better. Yeah, I prefer that. Just take that one out, just a little bit more at the top there. What I'm actually doing here is I'm making adjustments. Okay, so I don't want you to, let me just zoom that in a bit closer again. I have to be careful with the paper. I don't want it to, oh look, they're looking quite juicy. I quite like those. Okay, I'm going to put that to one side just for the moment. Right now, I don't want you to think that I can just casually sit down and draw or paint anything I want to. It's not like that. In exactly the self-same way as a sportsman doesn't suddenly get up and run the 4-minute mile. They do a lot of training and they have to suffer a little bit. And look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that out of the way. Now look, let me zoom that back. He says, trying to reach the, look, look, more, right? Now they're all okay. Some are a little better than others. Look, when you this is on watercolour paper, by the way, and I get a much better effect on my watercolour paper than what I have got on this cartridge. This cartridge is really for drawing. It's not really for watercolours, but it may well be that you haven't got any of this available at the moment. I want you to hang on to whatever it is you've, be it cartridge paper or even your computer paper. Hang on to it, we're going to need these later on. Alright, I don't need another cup of tea, I just need to move on with the video. Right, now you've had your little break and hopefully enjoyed your cup of coffee. Let's get back, and I'm going to pump these cherries up again. Look, take your practice cherries. There's absolutely no pressure because they don't even have to be particularly good ones, but you're learning a new process here. Alright, I'm going to zoom that in just a little bit so you can, this is the wrong way. Okay, what have we got? There we go. Right. Now, look, on here I've got my ultramarine blue, and I've got my cherry crimson red. So there's my red, there's my blue. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little bit of blue, I'm going to put in just a fraction of my crimson in. Look, and it's killed it. It's gone a very, very soft, warm grey. Let's pump that up a bit more. Right, now if you look between the two of them, you see that it's gone to a warm grey. And the more red which is in there, the warmer it gets. So I'm going to cool it down. I'm just going to knock in a little bit of more blue in there. Pick up the water. Okay, that will do me. Okay, now down to my cherry. And I'm going to pop just that little bit of shadow on the cherry. Can you see it there? Yeah, okay, just looking at the monitor to make sure. There. Okay, there we are. We've now touched down. Look, I haven't actually touched the cherry as such. I'm very, very close to it. I've now taken a bit of plain water. Look, I'm just going to water that out. It's very subtle, but it's actually stopping the cherries floating about. Okay, right, now on this first one, that could be a little bit stronger. Whenever something touches something, be it my brush, look, see there, just there, there's a little tight shadow, and as the stem goes up, the shadow softens. So look, I'm going to put a coin on there. Right, can you see on that coin, just where the coin makes contact, you'll always get that little tiny tight shadow, and as it lifts away, look, you can see the shadow softening out as it's actually going. So as soon as we've got the light coming from this angle, I'm softening out in this direction. Alright. The interesting thing is that if I put that there, there's no contact between the coin and the paper. The moment I make contact, it says it's planted. Because if I lift it away and it's not making that contact, I can actually pass something underneath it. And so it's saying your cherry is just lifted a little way off the actual surface. So look, while it's still damp, I've got my 2B pencil. And I'm going to put in that little tight shadow using my pencil. There we go. And I will soften it just as I come away. Right, can you see that? So just checking on the monitor, just softening it as it's coming away with very, very lightly with the pencil. Right, now if you make a comparison between this cherry and that cherry, you'll see that this one is made contact and that one is just tending to lift away. Now I've used the pencil, and I would suggest you use a pencil at this moment in time. As you acquire a little bit more skill, which you will do, you can actually do the same thing using your brush. There we are. There's that. Look, there's that little tiny tight shadow. It's as with the pencil, I need to soften it. As the side of the cherry is no longer in contact with the actual plate or surface or whatever it's on, so therefore, just like the coin, it will soften out. There we go. Right. It will obviously make contact with the other cherry. I won't have that little light line there. Right. Now, if I want to get really flash, and I don't really, but I'm just going to show you something here. I will pick up just a little bit of my red. Just a little bit of my red, and I will pop it in fairly close to the actual cherry. It's almost as though it's sort of grinning off of a white plate. I've got a lot of water on there now, and I'm just easing it out. I mean, so if that was a really shiny plate, here we go. I'll probably ruin this, but it doesn't matter. I'm just showing you something. Look, I've got a lot of water on there, and I'm just running it down the side. I've got to be careful because I don't want it to look like a spiky shadow. There we are. A little bit more red. It's not going too well. There we go. Right. Now, I don't want it to be spiky, so I picked up some plain water and I'm just running it out into nowhere now. There we go. But it just gives you the feeling that maybe that cherry is reflecting a little bit of its colour. Don't run it down too far, but you need to water it out. Okay? I've lost a little bit of my contact in there, so I can't do it now because it's a bit too wet, but I'll just need to come back and put my little bit of contact back down on that section there. Okay, look, while we're looking at these, you need to start practicing writing your name, preferably in a brush, but if it's early stage, just settle for a, here we go, let's get another check. Just settle for a, in my case, it will just be a little BTS. That's it. That's all I need. Right, now, you can actually practice your B, C, H, I. Right. You can actually practice that, not for your cherries, but for when you come to do your full paintings. By doing that, I've always said in art you can't really cheat, but make sure it's your initials and not somebody else's. Okay, right, now I'm going to just show you here oh yes, here we are. Look, I've double coated these cherries, and I haven't on this particular one, but if I wanted to get very sort of fussy about this, what I can actually do is, look, I can lay down a yellow and a little bit of my cherry over the top, and then when I come back to these cherries, I can actually take my brush back with a little bit of water, and you'll see that there's a sort of glow going on underneath the cherry, and nobody will know actually how you actually achieved it. And I wouldn't, if I'm talking to someone in a gallery, I wouldn't be telling them anyway. But I'm being very open, very honest with you on this one, and what I'm saying is, this is not just a humble cherry. This is whatever it is you decide you want it to be. Look, I've got another one here. It's got a little bit of a soft shadow on. Now look, what I'm going to do, one of my hidden old-fashioned, being an old-fashioned boy, I've got some old-fashioned techniques. Look, I've got a little bit of egg here, and my water must be very, very clean, and ideally a larger brush. So I'm going to just pick up a larger brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the raw egg white. Mix it in, mix it in. You can just see it. You can just see it pulling away. See it there? Look. And what I'm going to do. Oh, by the way, make sure they're free-range eggs. You'll get a better effect. That's not true. It's just the way I am. Okay, right. I'm going to check everything. Look, I'm just going to glaze over that cherry. Don't hang around on it too long, because you'll start reviving the actual colour, and you will actually end up with a satin finish on your cherry. Oh boy, are they succulent. They're really beautiful. Let's see if I can just tilt that. I don't know if I can actually. Oh look, can you see it? You can just see it on there, right? And when that dries, it will come down to a satin finish. So when I'm painting berries and cherries and things of that nature, I will use this little trick effect, and I don't tell anybody. You can, in actual fact, now buy a watercolour varnish, but I don't, because I really dislike varnishing watercolours. When you put your glass over the top, it tends to do it for you. But every now and again, I mean, say if it's going to be a landscape or something like that, I've never ever used this to glaze a landscape. But when it comes to berries and cherries and things like that, yes, I tend to do that. Okay, right, now I hope you really enjoy playing around, practicing your skills. Don't beat yourself up when they go a little bit wrong. It really doesn't matter. Thank you for your time. I've enjoyed my showboating. Have fun, folks.